Hi everyone, Sothany Scruff-Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Gojira record, Fortitude. This is the latest LP from beloved French metal outfit Gojira, their 7th at this point, with things still moving full speed ahead as they enter their 3rd decade as a band. And with this new LP, they still seem to be sticking tightly to their slow drift away from their death metal roots that they began in the 2010s, now with even more of an embrace of groove metal, with some sludge metal thrown in, of course, too, and even alt metal on this new LP. I feel pretty confident in saying that if you enjoyed the band's 2016 record Magma, you will most likely be into this too, because a lot of the sonic elements of that record carry over onto this one, but maybe slightly altered. We still have that chunky, heavy guitar tone with the occasional digital pitch shifting, technical but very groovy drumming, some soaring reverbed clean style vocals too, but they seem more layered and reverb soaked this time around. Gojira on this record is sounding a bit more ethereal but still heavy, and honestly part of me might prefer the relative rawness and nudity of Magma a bit more. Still, there are loads of kick-ass tracks on this record, many of which were teased before the release of this thing. I believe there were like 5 teasers or singles to this record, and it's just 11 tracks, one of which is an intro to another effectively. And between those tracks and the deeper cuts I heard once I finished the entire record, I loved a lot of what I was hearing. There's the intro track, Born for One Thing, which is some thunderous progressive sludge, matched with passages of Pantera-style riffing. It's very Mouth for War, Walk. The band has been working this combination of styles for years now, and they still have a knack for it. The way the riffs and drums sync up at multiple points of the track, too, is great. I mean, the band just really has an ability to showcase some very technical but still visceral playing, not so tight and robotic that it loses its soul, loses its excitement, its thrill. Though I will say on this track and a few others too, those denser vocal harmonies we're hearing on this record do feel a little artificial, like touched up to the point where it's almost like I'm hearing synths more than I am vocals, which I don't necessarily think complements this track aesthetically. There is Amazonia, another track I enjoyed prior to release, but one that still perplexes me a little bit. First, let me say it's actually a very thoughtful track conceptually about the might but also destruction of the Amazon rainforest, an area of the world that many have referred to as our planet's lungs. The track also features some of the best chugging guitar riffs on the entire record, some bestial vocals, a chilling bridge that's topped with mystical guitar leads too. But what's odd the more I listen to it is it's clear the band wanted the instrumental to sound a little tribal, maybe almost in like a Soulfly or a Sepultura kind of way. But the attempt here that Gojira makes to pull this off is just painfully tacky and shallow, just like some very bad woodwind playing and what sounds like a jaw harp, which to my knowledge this instrument really has no connection to this area of the world. Overall, it's a great song, it's a great track, but these well-intentioned additions just come off kind of nutty. The conscious bangers on this record continue on to Another World. Some tight and progressive guitar arpeggios set a rigid foundation for some of the most panoramic vocal harmonies on the entire record. The lyrics here further detail our process as a species, destroying this planet and anything worth saving within it, and yearning for another place to be and exist as a result of that. And the biggest surprise on this cut is the strangely groovy and psychedelic passage that the whole song moves through around the bridge. The very spacious outro is a nice touch too. At least on the intro, the song Hold On sees things moving in more of a traditional classic rock or progressive rock direction, at least on the guitar side. The whole first leg of the track is anchored by these mesmerizing chant-like vocal passages, as well as a very driving and hypnotic drum beat. While I think the singing is a bit funny timbre-wise, I like that this portion of the cut actually tries to get in touch with that prehistorical civilization type vibe a bit more authentically. Lyrically, the song is all about a tumultuous experience trying to fight your way across a body of water to find land. And Gojira does a great job of making the sound so urgent, epic, and life or death, especially with these howling vocals and just massive chunky guitar riffs. The more I listen to the track too, I'm sure you could interpret these lyrics as being more of a metaphor for life's general challenges and stress too. Now, Now, the middle of this record is where things really start to slip for me. Newfound, there are aspects of this track that I like. Generally, I think it sounds as good as everything else here, but the riffs are really, I think, a little basic for Gojira, honestly. These feel like stale nu metal leftovers. Meanwhile, there's some vocal effects on the track that remind me of like Issues era Korn. It seems like a weird reference point for the band. I don't know why I'm getting this vibe, but again, it just feels like some bad, very basic 2000s era commercial metal stuff. Meanwhile, Fortitude and the Chant are my least favorite tracks here, at least by a few miles. The chanted group sung vocal passage that leads up to the chant I don't think is particularly good or well sung, but if that wasn't bad enough, the lead vocals on this track too are the worst on the entire record. Just some really sniveling cleans that are nowhere near as good as the singing on the rest of this LP. I don't know why there's such a gap in quality from here and the rest of the record. I feel like I'm listening to some really bad musical theater production try to incorporate some terrible metal number in the middle of their play. The following track, Sphinx, totally kicks ass, but for some reason I cannot get as into the storm as I would like. The drummer on this track is just rocking that cymbal bell, which I don't really mind the sound of the cymbal bell when it's being used sparingly or it's not mixed so high it's one of the most prominent things in the instrumental. But it's so loud here, and for some reason the rhythm that is being played specifically on the cymbal bell sounds like I'm listening to a train crossing signal. Ding! I was digging deeper into the track hoping there was some kind of like railroad reference going on here to kind of justify it, but there's not. Granted, it doesn't take up the whole track, but the portions of the track it does are just completely ruined for me. The Trails is another underwhelming and somewhat awkward moment on the LP. I'm noticing a pattern that whenever the band backs off a bit and tries to do something mellow, it just feels a bit off. But at least the closing track of the record ends things off somewhat climactically and brings back a theme mentioned earlier on the LP, giving into a grind, giving into conformity, life itself being a grind and a stress and I guess a challenge that is always ongoing. Not necessarily one you benefit from though. Gojira's portrayal here feels more like a hellish trial, something you're sort of just shoved into until you just give up and give in. Overall, I will say I think this is a pretty good record from the band. There were a couple tracks that were just non-starters for me, a couple others that I think could have used some retooling, but generally there are a lot of very well-written, produced, and performed songs here. I'm liking the incredible lyrical focus, as you usually get with Gojira, but still, it's a consistent high point of the band for them to go into their songs with some thoughtful lyrics and ideas and stories to tell. Yeah, sure, it's not quite on the same level as their classic progressive 2000s era stuff, but certainly more highlights than duds on this thing. Feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this record, Tran. Zishin, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Gojira, forever.